Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Saturday, February 3rd, 0230 in the morning, Eastern Time. Now, why are you up so early, you say? Well, because I actually got up about an hour ago because I woke up after being asleep for about 5.5 hours. And I decided to just get up and see what was going on, and I stayed up. God bless us all. Yeah, it's still dilute wine, but it's Chardonnay this time because I don't want to go down in the cold weather to the truck to get the Cabernet out of the truck because it's been. Yesterday it was barely above. It did get up to 19, and right now it's sitting at around 10 or 11. It was actually 9 when I got up out of bed here about an hour and a half ago. So we're in for basically another more or less cold one today, but I think it's supposed to get a little warmer. Maybe we might have some snow, maybe not. Who knows? We had a sprinkling of snow midday yesterday, but yeah. If you hadn't looked out the window, you would have missed it. And if you looked out the window later, you wouldn't have seen it at all because it would have been gone. I don't think it melted. I so much as sublimed away. Now, there's a word you want to look up, is subliming, in terms of a process where a solid goes into a gaseous state without going through the liquid phase. Check that one out. That's one of the neater bits of physical phenomena here in this world. How do we get on this? How do we get on this? I don't know. Well, so I thought, well, let's just see if I, you always, when I wake up in the night, I like to be sure I've turned off the stove and everything's okay and I haven't done anything dumbass and that sort of thing. Turns out I did find I had left a pot on warm. There was some beans and ham with some garlic in it that I had chopped up, and I did find that, and I turned that off, and that was really, that's well to go. That's good to go. I'll be really enjoying that later on today, after I decide to go back to bed, assuming I decide to go back to bed. Meanwhile, the crud is pouring out of my eyes. It's like I've got reptiles spitting on the inside of my glasses. It's really strange some days, guys. I really like these to-dos. Many thanks, Sam Whelan, for introducing me to the idea of getting to-dos. Up close and personal, as he did. It's a gift from Australia, I'll tell you. Among other things. So let's see here. Before I get sidetracked now, I guess there's a lot of hoo-ha about this memo, this FBI memo from one of the House Intelligence Committees. Which may or may not have been edited according to which version you hear. But what, at least, the one version that's out there makes fairly clear is that the FBI presented evidence, quote, evidence, to this so-called FISA court. And I'm using the air quotes because FISA is like Foreign Intelligence Service Agency, FISA, court, in the sense that in a court, there's generally an adversarial, at least in the United States, there's an adversarial proceeding in which one side presents actual evidence that they can back up with other sources in addition to what their assertions are, and the other side and other side gets a chance to rebut or contest these assertions, also by being given the opportunity to present evidence that also should be backed up at some point if challenged by further back ways of finding the evidence. Now, given the nature of spying and intelligence, quote unquote, it's like military music, isn't it? That's an old joke from Vietnam War area, guys. You got to be of a certain age to understand that one. I like most military music, actually. It's pretty stirring, frankly. But all right, let's not be calm, Jay. Anyway, so apparently this bullshit about spying on campaign people by one campaign or the other, and okay, fine. So if it happened, fine. If it didn't happen, fine. I'm sure there are competing versions out there. The predominant version probably is not the one that most people are hearing, because the press is very much in favor of one campaign as opposed to the one that actually won. Eliminate the states, and you'll eliminate the electoral college guys if that's what pisses you off. But as long as we have the states and federalism, you're going to have the electoral college. So get over it. Or amend the Constitution. There's ways to do that. In fact, there's two ways to do that. I'm not advocating that, but you do have a remedy out there if you're going to, piss and moan and beef. I myself don't particularly want the bulk of California deciding how I live here in Ohio. Leaving that aside, this so-called FISA court stuff's coming out, and I remember when they established this thing shortly after the magic number 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11. And I'm sure, and the same thing happened after Pearl Harbor, December 1st, December 7th, December 7th, December 7th. I mean, it's like, all brains were turned off when she said that. And the same thing happened when all brains were turned off when you mentioned September 11th. And the fact of the matter is now that's 17 years ago now. And it's time now to start remembering that we do live in a nation that is ostensibly a free nation, where people have a great deal of individual liberty, that is supposed to be free from government surveillance, although we all know that's a bit of a myth anyway. Just ask the IRS on that, huh? Okay. Or your local police department on that, huh? Okay. But you want to try to make it harder for them if you can, such that if they're caught out, they have to jump through a few more hoops to justify it than they do now. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Of course, the problem is the press is going to just go nuts, and you're not going to get a fair You're not going to get an even-handed. I'm not even saying fair because they're two different things. Even-handed is not the same thing as fair. Uh, Treatment. And they just need to get rid of this damn court. They had a chance a few years ago, but they renewed it. Much to their shame, their shame, the Republicans renewed it. I do like my to-do. I like all my to-dos. I particularly like the St. Cuthbert to-do. I ought to get that on a big old T-shirt or something, and I can wear that when I'm in Durham Cathedral. Oh, I like that idea. So I woke up and I had a happy find. I had a happy discovery. I found that I had a couple of sausages in the black iron skillet that I had neglected to eat last night. And so I had a very nice, slow, leisurely meal here this morning. Well, yeah, it's 20 till 3 now. Then I got up around a little bit after 12, a little bit after midnight. So actually, I got up at 11:30. So I've been having a nice little middle of the night interlude here. I talked to my good friend Tony from Seattle here much earlier in the evening, and we were. Well, I was particularly glad, and I told him about my good friend Tony from the UK. Improvement on some medicine that he's been on for his depression, or as he would rather have it, melancholy. But I think that horse is out of the barn. You know, that's a useful 19th century term, but I think that's pretty much a red herring by now. Very much as I like to use the term, and did use the term for a long time, neurasthenia. Neurasthenic was an adjective used to describe, and it was almost always used to describe a woman, but I imagine some of these really effete young guys might also be called neurasthenic in the 19th century. And they're sort of languid and weak and unassertive and laying about and always feeling tired. And, oh, what am I going to do? 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 I'm going to tell you right now, there isn't a single person out there that listens to me that doesn't know somebody like that. Have some fun and call them neurasthenic someday, sometime. Oh, you're suffering from neurasthenia. Well, that actually used to be a legitimate medical diagnosis back in the 19th century. One day, just for fun, I ran into an individual like that. I was going to do anesthesia on him. And you know, he always had to write a little pre-op note, like, you know, so and so and so and so and so and so. Impression. And so just for the hell of it, one time I wrote neurasthenia. I just wanted to see if I'd get called on it. Flew right through. No problem. Which just goes to show you that most of the time you write this shit down on a chart. It doesn't matter what you write. You could write, oh, I went down to the treasurer's office and checked the real estate taxes. Very much like I filled in a high school physics workbook one year. Yeah, I decided I wasn't going to fill in any of the damn questions on this physics workbook because it was bullshit. It was bullshit. It was just all copy and paste and cut and paste. And, yeah. And so I had a job with lawyers, a lawyer's office, and running real estate titles. And I had to check, be sure all the taxes were paid and things. And so I basically just described in the physics workbook, filling in each line with, my little blue fountain pen, cursive writing, very carefully, because anybody's ever seen my cursive writing, connected writing, knows it's awful. But this was very carefully written. How to do all this stuff. It was like, this idiot fill in physics, chemistry / quote teacher unquote. I shouldn't even put those in quotes. Just not even use the word teacher for this guy. I I was just waiting to see what he would do. So, a. No, I knew the material, but it wasn't like I didn't know the material. It's just like I just wasn't going to dignify it with this kind of approach with a response. Oh man, I'm enjoying those last two sausages so much right now. They're sort of, you gotta love that kind of stuff. Well, meanwhile, it's like I said. Well, I said it was 9 degrees and 11 degrees. So between 9 and 11 this morning. Now I read at 8 o'clock on Sunday the 4th. I think I mentioned being sort of more or less eliminated from a lot of the reading rota yesterday. I think I did mention that, and that's just as well because other people need to get involved, and I'm going to be hither, thither, and yon out of the country this year for 5 weeks anyway. I've been getting really excited about this trip over in June with my son to Durham. So I hope that works out so we can do it. I don't at this point. I don't see any reason why we can't do it, but I do hope that does work. But there's always, you never know. There's always a bit of a maybe thing. Okay. I think I've told you everything that's occurred to me here. Read, if you get a chance, read, I think I put it up, but I'll be sure I did. Well, it was, I did, because it was in the context of this FISA court and different attitudes toward government, an elite attitude toward government and a populist attitude toward government. And then actually also, interestingly, this guy who wrote the editorial or the piece morphed into populists, then becoming elitists in and of themselves once they get in power. And that little phenomenon's always interested me. All we have to do is look at Nazi Germany, how it started out. It actually started out when it was an electoral process of being a populist movement, and then of course once they got into power, their leader, in any case, became a dictator. Albeit, and we always forget this, he was voted in by the legislature as a dictator. But then, see, they had that provision in their Constitution, and thank God we have no such provision in our Constitution. See, that's why people in the military take an oath to the Constitution, not to the government, and not to the president, and not to the Congress. You take an oath to the Constitution. Let me say that again. I can't emphasize that enough. you take an oath to the Constitution, not a government and not a leader. Now, I'll take an oath to the Constitution any day of the week, and already have done so many times, at least 7 times that I can remember in my memory. Remember, that's redundant, but every government job I've ever had, I've had to take an oath to the Constitution. Yeah, I've had government jobs. Government jobs. Unlike most government jobs, I've been able to hold on to them. They kicked my ass out of a couple of them. Oh, wait a minute. I was choosing to exercise my brain. And others, the time just ran out. But it's fun to be dramatic. Makes it for a better story. Okay, I gotta shut up now. It's now 10 till 3 in the morning Eastern Time on February 3rd, Saturday, 2018. So I'll say bye-bye, YouTube.